And welcome back to Live Now with Veenu and Chuck. We are so excited to be here with you guys tonight. Hopefully, the technology is working today. So, Chuck and I really wanted to bring an important topic to you guys today, and we're going to talk a lot about being versus doing. And Chuck, you and I have had several conversations about this, and I'm so glad that you had brought this up and said, "Hey, I think that it's time that we bring this topic to the world."
Thank you, Veenu. Yes, it's one of those, and in fact, it's kind of taboo conversation. It's something that's kind of thrown around the water cooler and in front of other people, where they just go, "Hey, being versus doing. Just do your best. Just be your best." Everyone says, "Hey, if you wanna, you need to be your best." What does that even mean? I mean, truthfully, who's ever given you a definition of what being your best looks like, feels like, smells like, what you hear, what you think, how you're processing, and what you feel in your body?
Right.
It's kind of like this, oh, well, just be happy. Well, what does happy look like? There's levels of happiness. There's deep depression. There's enthusiasm, and it's like, oh, those are the extremes, right? It's like, oh, adulation and euphoria. And then, oh my gosh, I just don't want to be on this planet anymore. And I just want to be done with all this. It's like, wow, 180 degrees on opposite sides of that globe, of that sphere of influence. And it's like, okay, then are doing and being that far apart? And I said, no, they're right here.
Right.
They're right
Right.
here.
I think it also goes back to that feeling of being enough. I
Mm,
feel like what pushes us into the being versus, pushes us into the doing versus the being is that need of that fulfillment of enough. And it's so ironic, Chuck, because I was just working with a client with this last week and I just had this epiphany about those moments when we feel like we're not enough. And so many of us, I could raise my hands, my
oh,
feet, and everything, how many times I felt like I was not enough. That doesn't mean I have imposter syndrome. It doesn't mean that I'm fake. It doesn't mean that I'm not authentic. Actually, being authentic is admitting that there's times that I don't feel that I'm enough. And so when we look at that and the real meaning of not enough, it's being fulfilled. And that was the epiphany I had because I was thinking, I was giving this, in flow, working with a client. And I said, when you are hungry and you have that hunger feeling,
mhm.
how do you know you're done eating? They're like, I'm full. And I said, right, your stomach is fulfilled. It's fulfilled. You can't put anything else in there. So the pains go away. You feel satisfied inside. So if you look at, I'm not enough at school, or I'm not enough with my parents, or I'm not enough with my partner, or I'm not enough to my kids,
Mhm.
where are you lacking that fulfillment in those areas? And what would you need to feel fulfilled so you know that you are enough? Because people really have been linking to not being enough with self-worth. And I'm going to tell you, they're two totally different things.
They are.
Self-worth is the value you feel you bring in the situations and in your life. And being enough is the fulfillment you have or you feel in the different opportunities, which when you're not there, it pushes you into what do I got to do? What do I got to do to be better? What do I have to do today so I can be the best me? What do I have to do? And it's always, what do I have to do?
Yes. It's interesting you say that. Something came to my heart for just a moment, and that was, how do you know you're hungry? It's
My
one
stomach
thing to
tells
know
me.
that, yeah, it's one thing to know that you're full. How do you know that you're hungry? How do we know that we're hungry for connection? How do we know that we're hungry to feel valuable? How do we know? And I said, because you actually have a standard of worth. You actually have a realization and an understanding of self that goes way beyond the fray. It's like primordial, it's within you. In fact, if we want to get a little woo woo, it's your birthright. The
Yeah.
moment you were the spark that came in the universe and was blessed by God, the universe, light, happiness, photons, neutrons, electrons, Allah, Buddha, whoever the case might be. I said, yes, the answer is yes. And we know that we're hungry and we require sustenance. And I go, that sustenance is exactly the being part. It's
Mhm.
kind of like going, I know I need love. I know I need respect. I know I need self-worth and value. So how do you feed that? How do you nurture that? How do you get that understanding? Because if your stomach's not wrong, then I go, but for some people, what if you actually had a rumbling in your soul. You
Right.
just didn't understand that it had nothing to do with gastrointestinal need. It had to do with emotional need. It had to do with being more aware. Because you're given these tools the moment you come in the universe.
Yeah.
Many of us suppress them. I go, you're on a self-imposed, emotional fast. And how long can you go without feeling, to your point, full?
Right.
But we have to understand what the hangriness is, what the hunger pain is that goes along with that being of self. And it's one of the things that very few people talk about. And in effect, we fall back on almost the imposter syndrome and the fake it till you make it, because we go, just work harder. I don't know what the answer is, but just do more.
And it's the do, right? It's the do. When do we hear people say, I don't know what else you need to do, but just be,
Oh,
just be, just be.
calm your
I don't know if
mind. Like
I've ever heard
meditation,
that.
right? Right. Like it's like meditation. Just be. There is no mind. And I go,
Huh?
okay. Now you've got me thinking about the stuff that I wasn't thinking about, which is like my heartbeat and everything else. I love this. I heard this recently reiterated. And they say meditation is about not having no mind. It's about being so myopically focused that you lose yourself in your breath. You lose yourself in your heartbeat. You lose yourself in your presence, because there's a complete connectivity to self. And when you release, it actually allows you to be connected with everything else around you. And I was like,
Mhm.
wow, okay, love this, because I can focus on this, the tip of my fingertip. I can focus on the sound of your voice, Veenu. I can focus on heartbeat or energy exchange. But I can't just sit there in stillness and go, because then I'm looking for something. I'm hearing things. Oh, thank you. Love all these comments. Hey, everybody. It's so
Yeah.
wonderful to see you up on here as well. Thank you for joining us today. Um, so there's something that's deeper with being, and it really is very simple. And we hear this term all the time, and so I'm going to put it out there. In fact, it's two things. One is appreciation, and just knowing that you're above ground and drawing breath, you're wearing clothes, you ate a hot meal today, that you rested in a bed, that you have access to resources, that you had an opportunity to have a communication, conversation, and connection with other people. How blessed are we?
Hmm.
How blessed are we? And even in that monicum of appreciation in the moment. And then the second part was being authentic and real about it.
Yeah.
Not, oh, but someone else has so much more. And I go, and there's so many people who have no clue how to even reference any of the things that we just spoke about, because they don't live in freedom. They live in oppression. They live in a very controlled environment that doesn't give them the opportunity.
I think that also, just to piggyback off that thought, is we're living in a life of judgment.
Mm,
And because of that judgment, it pushes us into the do. Because
yes.
like you said, the being is already connected to source. It's connected if we're going on that wooey fooey pathway, which I think we have to with this topic. It's the moment that we're born with our soul into this earth, we're connected. We're still connected to source. I always think of it's kind of like that umbilical cord, right? Like we still have this connection, and it's our choice to hang on to it and get and hold it and energize from it, or it's our choice to feel like it's chopped off and we're separated from it. And that's when we're in the world of judgment and how it's supposed to be and how I need to show up. And you're only good enough if you XYZ.
Right.
So now I'm going to go do. Give me the formula so I can go do. You and I both were, I will say, raised. We were both raised in an environment where self growth was at the top, and we had to show that we understood, and we had to show we can take care, and we had to show this, and we had to show that. And next thing you know, we're like spinning our heads going, okay, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? We never ask, am I being the what I need to be right now? It
It-
was never even an option to feel
No.
And yet the back chatter is, oh, they need to stop doing, they need to stop doing, they need to start being. Well, you're not cultivating being. All you're cultivating is doing and judgment and the feeling of, am I enough today if I do this? Oh, I did that, so I'm not enough because I'm not chosen. And it's what we're living in. Our kids that go to school are living with it. Like, one of the biggest issues we have right now, and I say it's an epidemic, is number one, kids not sleeping.
Yes.
Like sleep, it's not happening with our kids. I don't know how many of you listening out there that have teenagers and young kids, but they don't want to sleep. They can't sleep. I have insomnia, whatever. And the other thing is socialization,
Yeah.
that our kids don't know how to have friends. And the friends that they do choose, are they taking them someplace great, or are they taking them somewhere that's not so great?
There's so many things to unpack in that amazing dialogue that you just provided. One thing I will remind people of is that judgment is complexity.
Hmm.
It takes your brain off into the weeds where now we're referencing all different aspects of life. And there's a lot of comparison that starts to fall prey into this judgment as well. We know what kills progress is complexity.
Oh, yes.
When you're being, there's nothing complex. It's simple. It's you. But the only time, and I'm not using a yes and in this case, it's a but or, is there is a challenge. And the challenge is that we start to compare against other people and their lifestyles and their achievements and the outcomes and the goals and the measurement as to where they're living, where we're living. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa. Okay, maybe I'm not as successful. Maybe I'm not as charismatic. Maybe I don't have the presence. And so people go, come on, who has a challenge with this? Well, I just watched a roast or not a roast, excuse me, a Mark Twain award for Adam Sandler last night, and David Spade was on, and all these other people, and Chris Rock, and they were all talking about that. This guy walks in, he goes, Chris Rock, it takes 2 years to be able to get on a weekend stage. He goes, I leave for 10 freaking days, I come back, and there's this guy on the stage, and he's hilarious. He goes, I think he was the busboy. It was Adam Sandler. He goes, I spent 2 years, and this guy's on stage in one weekend. Comparison.
Mm.
And in this draw to be so competitive, because that's what schools are teaching everyone now. It's not what you're learning. Are you learning it? Are your grades high enough? What you're standing in school, because getting into college, which that's another show. Is it even worth going anymore?
Right.
And the truth is, you can make a heck of a living by doing so many different occupations. But why? Because the comparison is, do you have a college degree?
Right.
Okay. I know many people who don't have a college degree. One of our mentors for 20 years doesn't have a college degree, but he has a PhD in life.
Yes, he does.
And you all
Great.
know he has big hands and he's really tall. And so the point in being is that when I look at this, I go, okay, life lessons, to your point, socialization, being able to actually incorporate yourself into the world. If one of the top needs we have is love and connection, and yet most people are afraid to speak publicly. Most people are so scared out of their skin to espouse their beliefs and actually speak their truth. How can you possibly be your best if you're constantly dimming your light? And you and I'll speak for myself. I know, holy smokes, for the better part of my 50 some odd years on this planet at this point, I dimmed my light for a very long time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, me too. It took a long time. And the only person that's going to turn your light up is yourself, first of all.
Yes.
I think we're all waiting for someone to turn our light up, to say, hey, look, I see you shine brighter. This is how you're going to shine brighter. And I wanted to just unpack something that you said, because it really landed with me, is that, yes, comparison assassinates our dreams. Like, it totally does. And yet it also can set the standard for us as well.
And so let's get really clear on this. There's a difference between meeting standards that we set because that's a gravity. That's like, I'm going to be the happiest, kindest, most authentic, present human being I can be. Let's hear this. Jim Quickle says, anything you say I am or I be becomes who you are.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be the most authentic, present, upstanding, loving, kind, happy soul. And I go, okay, what does that look and feel like? I go, well, are you going to be happy or sad when you're espousing to me any of these? I go, pretty damn happy. I go, ooh, and how many ways are there to feel happy? They go, a lot. Oh, so if we make this simple, because we hear this again, this is one of those cliches. Ordinary things done consistently produce extraordinary results. Well, what if you actually loved and appreciated and smiled at the person in the mirror every single day? I know I haven't. And there are days I get up in the morning, I'm like going, me. Because I might not be feeling as fresh as I need to be. I might not have rested as much as we discussed, Veenu. And that's the other side of this too, is like, okay, then am I cultivating rituals and habits that take me out of just the doings, but that are based on the being? Are you drinking a glass of water in the morning because you need hydration? Are you breathing deeply? Some people call that meditation or focused meditation or breathing. Are you being present? Are you espousing great hygiene and taking care of yourself where you actually look and feel great? Are you working out and building the muscle, body, mind, and spirit? They go, oh, but those sound like a bunch of doings. They are selective because you don't have to, you get to. And these are things that feed you, not feed on you. Doings can feed on you. They're only 24 hours in a day. And if you actually look at all the things that you have on your to-do and hit list and coulda, shoulda, wouldas and your honeydews and there's a lot going on. Throw on top of that, you're a mom. You're a businesswoman. You're an executive. You're an executive level strategist. You actually teach curriculums to other people. It's like, oh, just those things. You host a couple of shows. Really? When do you sleep?
Right.
Right? And it's like, so here's one of the ways to move away from doing, y'all. You ready? It's a very complicated question, and it's the change in one word. Start asking people how they're feeling. Quit asking them how they're doing.
Yes. Yep.
Because the brain responds to the questions that it gets asked. If I ask you how you're doing, you're going to go, I do a lot. Oh my gosh. You want to see my schedule? But if I ask you how you're feeling, you're going to tell me exactly where you're at. It takes you out of your head. It puts you back in that heart space.
It's funny that you said that because when somebody says, how are you doing? The first thing I think of is all the things I'm doing. I'm like, I'm doing great. Like I'm on schedule. I got my life plan. I am doing great. I'm on my hustle of my life. I am doing absolutely great in my life right now, and then there's times that I'm not doing great in my life. And I'm like, well, I could be doing better. There's a lot of things I could be doing better, because I'm thinking of what I am doing in my life.
Yes.
And when you ask me, how do you feel? It really gets me connected here to my heart. How am I feeling? And how often are we asking ourselves that? Because that really is the key to checking in with being. You don't need to wait for Chuck to ask you, how are you feeling? Ask yourself, check in with yourself. One of our mentors, I learned this from Joseph McClendon III, one of our friends and mentors, and he said that he had an alarm set on his phone. And I believe it was every hour or something like that, but it would go off to remind him of, to celebrate or shake his ass, as he says, and so I did that. I set a timer on my phone every hour on the hour to go off to remind me to take 10 seconds and just realize what I'm grateful for in that moment. So I have 6 kids. I had 4 of them with me, my 2 stepdaughters and my twins, and we were out shopping at Hobby Lobby, and my alarm goes off and they all look at me and I say, what time is it? We're just going to stop and say what we're grateful for. And they look at me, they're like, in the store? Well, you could start, but when we get to the car, you guys got to give me 3 more things then. And again, we're driving and the alarm goes off again in an hour. And I'm like, what time is it? And so I started a rhythm with it. Well, when we got home, they came to my room. They're like, did the alarm go off? Because it's been an hour. And I said, Actually, it's about ready to, but it's so amazing the
Yes.
conditioning when I made it fun.
Hmm.
We took time to check in with ourselves. Like, that is how easy it is to role model. Because if I was even teaching a client today, because I do the life wheel for kids, and the life wheel for kids looks different from the life wheel from adults.
I hope so.
Although self-care should be on the adult life wheel, but
Absolutely.
on the kids' life wheel, I implemented in there. I said, "What's self-care look like?" I said, "Because if I could teach you this now as your coach, if I could teach you at 14, if I could teach you at 16, if I could teach you at 17 to self-care right now, do you know how much more life you will add to your life and the quality of your life will be when you're in my shoes and you have a family you're supporting and you have 20 different hats you get to wear just to know that you can self-care so you're not walking 30 miles on a Saturday afternoon, right, Chuck?"
Exactly. Yeah, you don't need to go to that extreme, y'all.
Right,
I'm just letting you know.
right. So that's just it though. It's that self-care. So if we start role modeling to our kids and if we start teaching our kids now, how far are we catapulting them into life to first know how to be? Because it's checking in with you. How
Hmm.
am I feeling today? What can I be grateful for today? What should I be grateful today? What could I be grateful for today?
Yeah.
And it's just in that moment, you have stopped doing. You're in that moment of being because you had a point. I want to circle back to it, Chuck, in the beginning of the show, is when you talked about when people say, "Well, how do you be?" Well,
Right.
how do you know? How do you do happy? How do you do anything? You
How do you
know,
breathe?
right.
How does your heart beat? It's like going, it's an innate part of you.
It is. And so so here's one strategy to get into being. Okay, listen closely because it's like this is rocket science. In that moment, stop doing.
Yeah.
Just stop doing what you're doing and just pause for a moment, take a breath, put your hand on your heart and just connect. In that moment where your brain's not going what you need to do next, what you need to do next, you're in the moment of being. That is the absolute feeling of being.
Absolutely. I have to comment. There was someone, and I love this. It's from one of our LinkedIn um, participants. They said, how are you? More open and broad. Love the appreciation alarm too. I don't disagree. Here's the thing. When you ask someone, how are you? You're going to find out whether or not they're in their head or they're in their heart real quick. Oh, I'm busy. Got a lot going on. Being or doing? Hmm. Doing. They're
Right.
doing. They're busy. So they go, okay. How does that make you feel? Oh, because we've talked about this before, Veenu. Couple questions. Ask yourself how you're feeling right now. Not an hour from now, not 10 minutes ago. How am I feeling right now? What does that mean? What does that mean to me right now? What does that mean to you right now? Because especially in relationships, if people checked in more often this way, it was about we. How are we feeling right now?
Mm.
Ooh, wow,
Where
wow,
would
wow, wow, wow.
where would that take your relationship?
Hey, that awareness and the honesty and the integrity and without judgment. And
Mhm.
then how would we love to feel instead?
Right.
Even more in love. So not devoid of love, even more in love, even more passionate, even more playful, even more engaged. It's like, wow, we get to cultivate and grow. That's what we do, and it is important to check in daily. It really is because yes, and thank you. And it's removing judgment. This is so huge, y'all. And I know people go, well, judgment's not a bad thing. And I said, isn't it though? Because in order to judge, we have to compare.
Right.
It doesn't mean that we don't measure. Let me explain.
I was gonna say we need to because that's where I was talking about with the comparison, right? Is
Yes.
like it's and you brought that and I'm just stopping you so just for our listeners coming on is that we say that comparison assassinates our dreams of what we want and who we need to be. And then I also brought up the fact that but when we compare, we also can get a level of expectation, a standard. So Chuck is gonna now teach us the difference of comparing versus measuring.
So let's use the temperature outside. Okay. Everyone has a different measuring stick. Some people are on Celsius, some people are on Fahrenheit. And if you hear a number and they go, oh, it's 20, and you're like going, wow, that's freaking cold. They go, oh no, it was viciously hot. Then you're like going, wait, what? But it's 20. Yes. Oh, you're in America. You have a different standard than we do. Oh, so it has nothing to do with the temperature outside. It's your interpretation of what that temperature and the number is. Millimeters compared to inches or centimeters to inches. It's like we can get lost in the weeds on references, but when we hear a number, for some people it's triggering and it gives a response immediately. What if we remove labels? What if we remove responses? And that's why with feelings, feelings are universal. Happy is happy, sad is sad. It's that simple. And we can actually make it in a language that crosses over for everybody. We
Right,
understand emotions. Happy. How do we know this? Because since you were little, we all have the same way of emoting. And there's a shift in energy, and it has to do with unspoken language. If 7% of communication is linguistics and spoken, and the rest of it is body language, energy, presence. If you want to get technical, what hertz are you actually operating at? What level of consciousness? Why? Because each one has a different level of energy. When you're around a bunch of people who are low level, and this is true, you become the people you spend the most time with. Get out. If that's the case, plan your escape or drastically change your state and see if it helps elevate the space. But that's going to take a lot of energy for a long period of time. You are the company you keep. Please understand this. There is nothing more imperative than your peer group. Love your family. Love them, honor them, cherish them, hold on to them. Yes. And pick your peer group, because you
right.
will become who you hang out with. If you're around a bunch of fakers, you're going to become a faker. Don't believe me? I'm not going to say try it on, because it's going to be a big waste of time. Honor yourself by realizing this. When you are around people who are faithful, when you're around people who are honest and integrous, when you're around people who are raising their standards, and I'm not saying in an artificial way to just get ahead. I'm saying that is their call in life, is to learn and grow.
Right.
You're going to become a lifelong learner. That leads to
And
win.
I also want to just add to that whole measurement. It's finding things in people that emulate what you want to feel and see how they're using it and doing it, not to compare yourself. So, I always use Pink. Like, I love Pink. And what I love about Pink is her kick-ass attitude. She doesn't care what people say about her. She's going to do her. And in my opinion, she lives very authentically. I even watched her um, biography on one of
Mhm.
the Hulu channels or something. And, you know, what you see is what you get from her.
Yeah.
She don't care if the camera's rolling or not. Like, what you see is what you get. And I love that about her, that confidence. And if you knew her story and where she came from and to where she's at now,
Yes.
she didn't have the confidence she had when she was younger that she has today. And so just hearing that and seeing how she emulated that when I needed that type of confidence and that type of strength, it's I would go into like, what would she think right now? What would she do right now? How would she show up on stage right now?
How would she be right now?
In that moment, what is she feeling inside of her body to be on that stage, to be who she is in that moment? And to find that connection and find that fire in me, not to be her, because I'm never going to be her, but to be me in that moment with that same emotion of
Yeah.
confidence in that I got this, and the judgment out there is not going to affect the impact I'm about to make
Right.
on my audience. You know, so again, it's measurement, it's not comparison. It's not, well, I'm not as good as her. Well, I'm not trying to be her.
No.
So I'm not going to be as good as her. I'm going to be as good as I can be for me today.
So, what if it was aspiration and inspiration, and the desire was to raise your energy to match Pink?
Right.
Because now you're not changing who you are, you're being your best self at that highest level. You didn't let yourself fall down and become less than and lower your energy or suppress yourself. Some people go, "Oh, but Chuck, you're just extra. You always have energy." And I'm like, "What? No, you can ask my wife. The truth is that I'm human just like anyone else. And there comes a point in time that if you're not fueling yourself, and that's why we say self care is imperative, it's not a luxury, it is a birthright and a necessity in order for you to put the oxygen mask on yourself first so that you can actually make sure that everyone else is great. But
Mhm.
if you're not great, it's hard to keep that energy level.
Right,
And do you want to be one of those 5 people that's actually resonating here while pretending to be living here?
right.
You know what people call that? Exhaustion, adrenal fatigue, temporary, imposter syndrome, the fake it till you make it. But
All the things we discussed.
yeah, and we have. And what's this? Chickens with chickens and eagles with eagles. It's okay to be either, but it's that's great. That's true. We get to decide where we need to live. And also too, and I love what again from our LinkedIn participant, that with the question, I want to give them the opportunity to share instead of directing the question only feelings. And that's awesome. Because what you're going to find is it's never about one thing. It's never even about the event. It's about how the meaning that they've given to that event. And that will subsequently come down to, at some point in time, a feeling or an emotion.
Right.
How we're wired as human beings.
I wanted to add something, Chuck, because you said something really well about putting your oxygen mask on first. And I know we covered this last week when we talked about self care, or the other week. I forget. Our weeks are running in together, but we talked about it on one of our shows. And here's what I'm seeing. I brought this up on today's show too, is the epidemic with kids, but I also find it a problem with adults too, is that we're not sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll probably need to do a whole show on sleeping, because that to me, when I sleep, that's when I'm putting my oxygen mask on myself. I'm giving
Yes.
my body, my mind, and my spirit an opportunity to rest
Mm-hmm.
and be settled. You know, um, I'm not Christian, but there's a line in the Bible, a verse that says, "Be still
Yes.
and know I'm with you," or something like that, right? But the word is "be still."
Mm-hmm.
When are we being still? When are we taking that moment? And we're not even doing when we sleep, because most people say, well, I'll do it when I sleep, but you're not sleeping. So literally, when are you doing it? When are you taking that moment to put your oxygen mask on and really sleep? And so what we hear is excuses. So here's the question of the day. I normally come up with a question of the day in the morning, and it trickles through all my clients throughout the day. So I've had 5 clients I've coached today, and here's the question I gave all of them. If you had no excuses, what would you accomplish? If no excuses were possible today, tomorrow, the next day, you had no excuses,
Mm-hmm.
what will you accomplish? And guess what their homework was this week? The From Monday to Monday, all 5 clients are supposed to get rid of all their excuses, and when we check in next Monday, we're going to talk about all the things that they accomplished. To see, because we're just seeing what works, to see
Absolutely.
if they got their schoolwork turned in,
Love
if
it.
they did their projects on time, if they went ahead and asked a friend to go do something and got out of their house. Like, what specifically were you using excuses for? Did you go to the gym now? Did you stay away from the sugar? Did you make your menu for the week? You know,
Yeah.
all the things that we find, oh, I'm not feeling well. And I was very vulnerable. I said, you know what my go-to excuse is? I don't feel well. I don't feel well. And it was interesting because we've learned this when we were a kid. If we didn't feel well, what happened? We were allowed to stay home from school.
Oh,
We learned at a very young age that excuses will get us out of what we don't want to do in that moment. And as much as one of our great friends, Steve Linder, he taught us this a long time ago. This is a class you and I took, actually. It'll probably bring memories. And he had a bracelet that said, "Excuses are result you choose."
yes.
And I always use that as my momentum
Hmm.
when I have a choice to work and get some stuff done,
Right.
or sit on the couch and watch another episode of, I don't know, any show that I'm watching at the moment, right? And that saying comes in, excuses are results. And then in that moment, the next question I ask is, what do I need right now? And sometimes I just need to be.
Yes.
So, I choose the Netflix episode in that moment. without the guilt.
I love that, and I love the way that you framed that. What do I need right now? How do I need to feel right now? What do I need right now? Not what you want right now. Your wants will never stop coming. There is a zero limiter on the amount of wants that you can pontificate and espouse and share with everyone. The truth is, your needs are somewhat set.
Mm,
You need air, water, food, shelter, love, and connection. Everything else on top of that is a dream, a hope, an opportunity, and we get to. Those are we get tos. Wants are desires. And I go, there's nothing wrong with having a desire to have more. Dreams. That's why we talk about vision boards. It's like whatever you can conceive, you can achieve. And on the other side, how bad do you need it?
right.
Why is it on your board in the first place? People, oh, I just threw it on there. And I go, whoa, 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 whoa. You just threw it on there. I'm like, you didn't manifest this. You didn't go deep enough then, man. Come on, gal. Just get into it. Like, oh, really? You want to go on an Italian cooking tour? Where in Italy? All of Italy. I go, oh, now we're talking. And I go, how long is that going to take? I have no idea. Well, maybe you should find out. Maybe you should watch Stanley Tucci and how he explores Italy. And I go, now all of a sudden you go, oh, the Amalfi Course. Oh, I'm going to Rome. Oh, I'm going to go to, I'm going to go to Sicily. Yeah, the answer is yes. And
Yeah.
the cool part is you get to decide what that looks like, feels like, tastes like, smells like.
The whole experience, the
That's
whole
it.
experience. And, you said something about what we need air and water and all this. And here's the one thing that we're not putting on that list. And this is really what connects us to the being is that self-care.
Yes.
And I'm drilling that self-care because you and I, it's been a hot topic with us in the last few weeks. And because if we can burn out people who have learned how to manage their state, we work with clients, we high performance people, like if we can burn out, anyone can burn out. And it is such, I can't express this more if you're hearing this. Take time to be, stop the doing.
Schedule it.
Correct.
Freaking schedule. If you don't schedule it, you won't do it and you won't be it. But here's the deal it is in the formula. We talk about love and connection, but for some reason, we forget to love and connect with self. We think that it's about a relationship with another being. And I go, well, you're a being. Last time I checked, human being, not human doing. And so let's go ahead and connect with self so that we can actually be more. Because my family motto, you can be doing your best, but never being your best. When you're being your best, you will always do your best. You can't help it, but it's being your best in that moment and not judging it. It's being your best and giving your all. And I want to circle back to something, Veenu, and thank you for bringing us back here because I'm going to remind you all of something, and this is really powerful and important. When you outgrow someone, it's not selfish to let them go. In fact, it's necessary. In order for you to continue your journey, that means that, again, in an infinite mindset, you're going to know some of the players, not all the players. That means as you're evolving and growing, you're going to move past people. And this means you're going to move past users. You're going to move past people who are kind of fair-weathered friends. You're going to move past people who you thought were really important to you because in a certain environment or space or ecology, they felt connected to you. As long as you said yes, as long as you were the giver, as long as you were the one checking in. I want you to just noodle this over for a second. Think about how many people you actually check on during the course of a day because you love them and you care about them. And they may respond to you and say, oh, well, you confuse me. Because you're being real and you tell them the truth. They feel manipulated by you because you're being honest and open and caring. Let these people go.
Yes.
They don't appreciate the level of honesty and vulnerability and integrity that you are providing. And you may go, oh, but they're just not there yet. That's okay. If they catch up to you or they grow with you, that you go, but gosh, Chuck, aren't you being a fair weather friend? I go, no, you're being real. Because as parents, the number one gift that we can give to a child is an experience
Yes.
and the lessons and the learnings that come along with that.
Absolutely. And, and I also think that it helps us to realize, I talk to, especially because I work so much with kids, is defining what a friend is.
Yes.
You
Thank
know,
you.
I just taught this in a course. I teach coaches how to be coaches in another arena that I work in, another hat I wear. And I just taught them this quick exercise, and I'm going to teach our audience now to just take, draw an imaginary circle around you. That is your boundary. What do you allow inside of that boundary? I allow trust, love, laughter, no judgment, community, connection, integrity, honesty. That's what I allow in there. If the people that I allow to come in past that boundary into my circle, if they don't have that, I could still talk to them.
Mhm.
I could still appreciate the goodness in them,
Yes.
but they're not coming in my boundary. They're not
Nope.
inside my circle. And so when I was teaching these to the coaches, it was so imperative because in our life, we're so busy chasing things, every shiny penny. And I think this person's my best friend. And I think that person's my connection. And like you said, we're in an environment where people are emotional and people show up for you in that environment. Are they showing up for you outside of that environment? Are you still
Mm.
their best friend outside of that environment, outside of this environment, outside of school, you moved out of the neighborhood. Are you still connected now? This is what I'm talking about when I say that boundary. Where's
Yeah.
that boundary? And most people don't even understand that word.
Mhm.
They get upset when that person that they have to let go of no longer fits within their boundary. But did you
Right.
ever do a check? Did you ever check in to see, do these people really have this? And sometimes you won't know until you move away out of that neighborhood.
Right.
You think that they do check everything off, but the moment they don't fit in that boundary is the day that you say, I'm worth more, because we all know it's not what we deserve, it's what we tolerate. But I'll say this, we deserve what we tolerate.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. It's so enlightening to understand this one point, and this is critical. When we are around people, and the reason why I use the term fair weathered, what is fair weather? It's 75 degrees outside. There's not a cloud in the sky. There's a cool breeze. Life is amazing. It's like you could run, play, swim, whatever. It's a beautiful day.
Mhm.
I go, you find out who your friends are when there's a tornado warning. You find out who your friends are when hail is falling, when there's thunderstorms and flash floods and, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. And you're like, what the frick? It's like, wait, did someone turn on the lights and I was in a room with a bunch of cockroaches? Because I'm by myself.
Right.
Everyone scrambled and left. And I go, you find out who your friends are when you've had a really rough day. You find out who your friends are when you're contemplating your existence. You find out who your friends are when they're struggling with co parenting or challenges at work or their relationships. And you listen unadulterated, hang on their every word to make sure that they understood that they're not broken and that they're loved and that they're cared for. And it also means being honest enough to say, you screwed up. You made mistakes.
And here's the kicker of that, and I think it's so important. Not only are those people that show up for you in those moments, they don't show up with any judgment, that they get to look at
Yes.
you the next day as if they saw you 2 days ago. They don't look at you for that moment of, "I'm not okay." It doesn't mean that day after tomorrow they won't be your mentor again. It just means in that moment, they needed you to mentor them in that moment. That to me is the most impressive thing a friend can do, is that it's not about, what if they see me weak? Are they still gonna appreciate me? Well, if they don't, again, what was in your boundaries, right? Because I know, I mean, I've reached out to you several times, Chuck. I'm like, I'm not in a great space. I need some support. I'm comparing myself to someone. I feel less than. And and I tell you, I'm like, I'm just here to vent,
Yeah.
just to vent. And never once do I ever feel that, oh gosh, then Chuck's going to be like, oh, really? Is Veenu? Oh gosh, Veenu's not my person. And, I don't want Veenu in my life anymore. You still see me, the strong person that you saw me the day before.
Right.
But
Well,
in that moment, you allowed me to be vulnerable.
when you know someone's heart, you know their integrity, you know who they are. A moment is not a lifetime. And as I've mentioned many times, and one of the reasons why I believe I'm actually an effective strategist, and I know you are too, is because I have a PhD in screw ups. Like, I know what I'm really good at, and it's messing up huge, people, huge. You heard it here, huge. And so my point in being is that your friends, your inner circle, understand that you're not broken and neither are they. And that
Right.
together, in that understanding without judgment. See, judgment comes with a couple other things. That means you're the jury and the executioner as well.
Mm-hmm.
And most people who are type A personalities, who have a huge heart and who are driven, they're already judging themselves at such a high level. And we hear these terms like, I'm so broken.
Mm,
I feel marginalized or less than. And it's
mm,
like, wow. And we can all empathize. Or maybe you can't. I don't want to. I don't want to impart that on someone else. I will just say I know I can because I've been there,
right.
and that's what actually makes a great mentor. That's what actually makes a great friend. Is that it's not always the people that you feel have all the answers, and we have those people in our lives too. And you know what I've come to realize? News bulletin. They're human, and that they have the same shortcomings that we do, and they go through the same experiences that we do, and they need friends just like we do. But every now and then you're going to meet someone and they're going to pretend like they've got it all on lockdown. And they'll deny every, oh, don't worry about me. I'm great. Oh, my life's perfect. Look at me. They almost sound like Kevin Hart for a moment. Oh, no, no, look at me. It's like, no. And here's the truth. We all have pain. We all have happiness. We all have joy. We all have frustration. And, I learned this lesson today. I got to let go of someone who I thought was a really close and dear friend.
Mm,
And here's the beauty of it, the freedom that comes along with no longer feeling like I have to be something for someone else in order to have their acceptance, because this is a person I felt very strongly about the way they felt about me. So, who was it really about? Was it about them
yeah.
or about me? And I was
Well,
like,
that's a great question because we think it's all about us in that moment, but
right.
it's not. It's
And
not.
I made it about we. And when I
Yeah.
did that, I said, this person gets to have freedom. I will no longer be an influence in their life. That doesn't mean I'm pulling away. I said, if you ever need me
Mhm.
and you're in pain or you need me, I'll be available. But I am not going to reach out the way I have been. Because here's what I realized. It's kind of like giving everything that you have in love and respect and honor about yourself for free. And you're not a matcher, you're a giver.
Mm, yeah.
We talked about this,
Yeah.
matchers, takers, givers, right? But I go, if you're in a relationship that's copacetic, like Julie and I are in a matching relationship, my amazing wife of 35 years, we're 100%, 100%. Wasn't always like that, just being honest. We're there at 100% plus now. Why? Because in this space, we have found an agreement frame where the two of us, I cherish nothing more than to be her husband and to be a father to my children and to be an upstanding man. I strive to be a good man every day. And I'm so blessed that she helps me be a better man every
So
day.
I want to just caveat on that because when we get to that place,
Yes.
even like with you and Julie, with me and Brian,
Yes.
the moment that we are disconnected is the moment that I realize we're both doing.
Absolutely.
And when we get reconnected, it's stronger and it's better
Oh,
because we've had a realization that we stopped the doing and we started to be. We started to be one with each other. We started to let go of the judgment. We started to let go of the expectations of how we show up, how I needed you to show up. Well, when we're just being, there's
Yes.
no more expectations.
And there's healing that occurs
Yes.
and forgiveness of self and others. See, we will forgive others faster than we forgive ourselves. I know this. I have moments where I still feel weak and I feel guilty or I feel out of integrity for silly little things. And it was like, because someone will make a comment and go, wow, was that true?
Right.
I'm like, so I had to check in. Who am I going to check in with? My best friends, people who know me, who don't know Chuck Hogan, you know, mentor strategist, entrepreneur, behavioral strategist. They know Chuck Hogan,
Mhm.
father, husband, friend. That I go, there's a big difference in identity that's wrapped up in that.
Mhm.
And they go, oh, no ego. And I said, no, pride, connection. I don't have an ego around my family. I have so much pride and love and connection and respect. And they go, you don't get that in business? I go, you do, but it's different. The currency is a little different. It's not
Yeah.
that there's any less appreciation, but there's a different measuring stick called a profit and loss statement. I don't have a profit and loss statement for my family. I don't look at my family as a business. I look at my family as a blessing and a gift. I also look at my businesses as a blessing and a gift too, and it's changed the way that I do business now as well.
And I think that if we all can do that, especially as partners and parents,
Yes.
and when we start to get upset when our kids do something, and I know I'm like that too, having 6 kids and raising my twins definitely differently than I raised my older boys, and they're acting out or they're doing something in public, and I was like, in that moment, I'm embarrassed. But in the moment that I start to check in myself, why am I embarrassed right now?
Hmm.
What is it really meaning? And what has to happen next? I realized that A, they're 10-year-old kids.
Yep.
B, they have a burst of energy and it's just how they want to express it. And C, it has nothing to do with me. It doesn't make me a good parent coach or a bad parent coach. It makes me Veenu, a mother in that moment at a restaurant with my children, off the clock, if you would.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's off the clock. Love this. Love
And
it.
just being in the moment with what and being present and that's it, being present in the moment,
Yes.
the being.
It shifts everything. If I can impart one thing that can help shift everything when it comes to doing or being, doing in many instances has nothing to do with being methodic. It means that we have a standard operating procedure, we have a process, we have habits that we get involved with. When we are being, in many instances, we slow down.
Mm,
And so there's characteristics and there's modeling for success. So it's like, ooh, what if we slow down? What if we give ourselves that opportunity for that vagus nerve to connect, where now body, mind, and spirit were congruent, and the EEG and EKG, sinus rhythm of the brain and heart actually go into synchronous rhythm. It's like, wow,
imagine that.
imagine that. As we were reminded, the best decisions you ever made were in your heart with the benefit of intellect, not the opposite way around. And I want to honor you, Veenu, because you said something, and this is something that I've aspired to live even more congruently and more often. I talk about it, I've been talking about it for 2 decades plus. And it's the 3 questions that is, how am I feeling right now? What does it mean? Just like you said. And here's how I've been posturing it lately. Do I need to feel a different way? Not do I want to feel, do I need to feel a different way? So if I go, well, I'm feeling loving, I'd like to be even more in love. Oh my gosh, that would be like, how could I elevate that? What would that look like? What would that feel like? I go, oh, this is so beautiful. Because now it's filled with possibilities. There's no negativity charged to it at all. It's like, oh, I don't have any love, so I must feel love. No, it's like, wow, how could I love love and appreciate even all the blessings I have in my life right freaking now. Like right at this moment. It's like, I don't have to wait 5 minutes. I don't have to wait 2 minutes. I don't have to wait 30 seconds. I can decide now.
So I did this with my 10-year-old when he was 9, and he had this little journal, and because we've always helped our kids to elaborate on their feelings. So
Yeah.
if they want to have an upset when they're 2 years old, that tantrum, here's your room. It's your safe space.
Right.
You have that tantrum, and when you're done, come on out.
Yep.
Like no time out. We wanted to teach them how to self-regulate their own behavior and be in touch with that. So let's fast forward. They're almost 11 now. So a year ago, I gave Samuel this journal, and I said, we called it the angry journal because he would get so angry. And when he would be that way, I'm like, you need to go write in your journal. And on one page, it says, how am I feeling right now? Like, what am I feeling and what happened? Because I wanted him to figure out the triggers too. So I'm feeling angry. My sister took the remote control away from me, and my dad yelled at me. Great reason to feel angry. What do I want to feel instead?
Yes.
And then the next thing was, what did I do?
Mm.
What did he do? Because I wanted him to create his own recipe.
Yes.
If I don't want to feel angry, I want to feel calm, or I want to feel happy, or I want to feel heard was
Yes.
one of them. I didn't feel heard. What do you feel now? I want to feel heard. Well, what did you do then? Now he's creating his own recipe. So when he does feel this, and it's a rhythm of, okay, when I'm angry, I want to feel this way. And you know what's interesting is that the journal had different things that he wanted to feel.
Right.
Most people, there's a presupposition that, well, if I'm angry, I want to feel happy. Well, not
No,
necessarily. There
not
was
at
a
all.
it was like, I want to feel heard.
Right.
Like, because his dad got mad at him for doing something his sister did, and he was like speaking back, but that's not what dad heard. So what happened? Like all of his parents do. It's the last one. Wait, you're not doing that. Go to your room. You're not being fair. Da da da. And so he didn't feel heard. So that was the choice of what he wanted. He wanted to feel heard
Yes.
instead of angry.
And that realization comes when we're seeking a feeling. Feeling heard means respected. It means listened. It means honored. It means, and we can put as many adjectives and adverbs as we want with this. At the end of this, it is something so simple to take on and understand. And that is, we have a burning desire to be able to express oneself. That's why wars have been fought over freedom. And that expression of self is just part of being, and being in the moment, in the space. Part of it too is ecology as well. People go, well, what do you mean? Well, some people go, give me a place where you only have one emotion. And I said, there aren't any. Well, that's not true. I had someone call me out on this a couple weeks ago. They go, church. And I go, really? I said, as a former altar boy for many years, I was there for weddings, which is high celebration. I was there for Christmas Mass, which, by the way, is at midnight. And I was like, and they said, well, okay, but those are happy times. I said, yes, I've also been there for funerals and wakes and honorariums. And so I share this because it's never about the space. And it's never about the people, because we embody all these different emotions, none being right or wrong. There are no such thing as bad. It's okay to be angry. It really is.
Right.
Anger or hype or enthusiasm or adrenaline has been what, made a 7-month-old or 7-month pregnant mom lift a car off of her kids. Like, true story. She goes, I was so angry. She goes, I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm not going to hurt my baby. I'm not going to let my kids get hurt. She was like, and she moved this freaking Volkswagen Beetle off of her kids. The car had rolled over. That's amazing. And you go, it served her in the moment. Every emotion serves us. The difference is it in alignment with who you need to be at that moment? Some of us need to be the Hulk at that moment. We need to be able to rip the freaking doors off. We need to be able to just move a mountain. For others, we need to have the stoic wisdom or the presence of Job and be able to be calm and cool and collected. For others, we need to be emotional and let the pain out, because whatever you resist will persist. And if you are not expressing yourself in some way, shape, or form that gives you the ability to be able to emote and let go of. But I'm going to plead with you, please don't make excuses.
Yep.
Be authentically honest and real with yourself.
What could you do if you had no excuses? What
That's
could you feel if you had no excuses?
I'm going to take it a step further, something that you and I both know, which is if you knew you couldn't fail,
What would
there
you
was
do?
no failure, there was no judgment. What would you do right now?
Right.
Right now. And it's like, because people put it off, they go, well, I'll think about it. And I go, no, you need to feel about it. You've done enough freaking thinking. It's what's got you in this analysis paralysis in the first place. So when we get to slow down, what you're going to find is everything opens up and you can see everything and you have the confidence to speed up.
Yep.
But do you need to or do you get to?
I think that is like a key question. And we talked about this a while ago, and I'm just going to wrap it up now because we're a couple minutes past.
Oh
But
my goodness. I'm
it,
sorry.
no, it's all good. We talk about the have tos and turn your have tos to get tos and see what changes in your life.
Yes.
And I just want to leave you, all the listeners, thank you guys for joining in and your beautiful comments. And here's what's great is that the difference of doing and being is literally just a minute change. It's 1 millimeter. It's just kind of how you just shift your head to the left or the right. It's that quick of what you can do. And it's just
Camera one, camera
right.
two. Like, what's your perspective?
And so it's just connecting to yourself, back into your heart, and being present in the moment.
Mhm.
And it's going back to the feeling of the experience versus the experience of the doing of the experience.
Exactly.
So we offer you to experience life, continue to let your light shine, turn it on, let it shine brighter than ever with your presence, because you came into this world as a beautiful soul and the world deserves to see it. Chuck, do you have anything left to say?
None of you is broken. None of you needs to be fixed. None of you is right, although you may think you're wrong sometimes. But just hear what I said. You think you're wrong sometimes. Know that if you slow down and you ask yourself those questions, how am I feeling right now? What does it mean? And do I need to feel another way instead?
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself the grace and opportunity to know that this is your life. Make it magical. And as Veenu said, that 1 millimeter will come when you just slow down a little bit and you love, honor, appreciate, and take care of you. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Veenu. Great conversation tonight. I love you, my sister. Pure
We'll
blessing.
see you guys next. We'll be back on Zingo TV next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. You can also see us on our social media live, but Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. We'll see you all next week. Have a good night.